Captain Jake Morrison stared at the holographic message floating above his desk for the 10th time that morning. The blue light cast strange shadows across his weathered face as he read the words that still seemed impossible. After 47 years of human attempts to join the galactic community, someone had finally said yes. The message was from Commander Vex-High of the Zephyrian Empire, written in perfect but strangely formal English. The Galactic Council has approved a limited cultural exchange program. Your delegation is invited aboard the flagship Celestial Dawn for a period of 7 standard days. Dock at coordinates 447.892.156 in the neutral zone. Come alone with no more than 5 crew members. Jake rubbed his gray beard and called his senior staff to the bridge of the Aurora. The exploration vessel was small compared to the massive ships they had encountered at the edges of known space, but it had served them well for 15 years of deep space missions. Now, it might finally serve its greatest purpose. Dr. Lisa Bennett arrived first, her medical kit always hanging from her shoulder. She had spent her entire career studying alien biology from the few samples they had managed to collect over the years. Her dark eyes sparkled with excitement as she read the message. Over Jake's shoulder, "This is it," she whispered. "First official contact with a major galactic power." Lieutenant Alex Carter entered next, his military bearing evident in every step. The young security officer had trained his whole life for situations like this, though nobody really knew what to expect from alien first contact protocols. His hand rested instinctively near his sidearm, a habit that Jake hoped would not cause problems with their hosts. Engineer Sam Davis shuffled in, wearing his usual grease-stained coveralls. The thin man looked tired as always, but his eyes were sharp behind thick glasses. He had kept the Aurora running through impossible conditions, somehow making repairs with spare parts and pure determination. If their ship broke down in alien space, Sam would be their lifeline home. Communications Officer Katie Walsh bounced through the door with her usual energy. The young woman had mastered 17 human languages and had been studying alien communication patterns for years. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she carried 3 different translation devices clipped to her belt. "So we're really doing this," Jake said, looking at each of them in turn. "Anyone want a back? Out now? Nobody moved." These 4 had volunteered for the most dangerous missions humanity had to offer. They were not about to miss the chance of a lifetime. The journey to the neutral zone took 3 days. Jake spent most of that time reviewing everything humanity knew about the Zephyrian Empire, which was not much. They were described as tall, pale beings with multiple arms and a rigid social structure. Their technology was advanced beyond human understanding, and their ships were among the largest in known space. What troubled Jake was how little information existed about humans in Zephyrian databases. Every other species seemed to have detailed files about human behavior, biology, and culture. The Zephyrians had almost nothing, as if they had actively avoided learning about humanity. When they finally arrived at the coordinates, Jake felt his breath catch in his throat. The Celestial Dawn was enormous, easily 10 times the size of any human vessel ever built. Its hull was a smooth, silver material that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Strange symbols pulsed along its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Incoming transmission," Katie announced from her station. The view screen flickered to life, showing Commander Vex-High for the first time. The Zephyrian was indeed tall and pale, with 4 thin arms and large black eyes that reflected no emotion. When he spoke, his voice was flat and mechanical through the translation system. "Human vessel Aurora, you will dock at Bay 94. Follow the guidance beacons exactly. Do not deviate from the designated path. Your crew will remain in designated areas at all times. Is this understood?" "Understood, Commander," Jake replied. "We appreciate this opportunity for cultural exchange." Vex-High's image flickered slightly. Cultural exchange. Yes. Follow the beacons, Captain Morrison. The docking process was unlike anything they had experienced. The Aurora was guided by tractor beams into a bay that seemed too large for any reasonable purpose. As they settled onto the deck, Jake noticed that the entire area was empty except for automated systems. No alien crew members were visible anywhere. Strange, Sam muttered, checking his instruments. Their artificial gravity is set to Earth normal. How did they know our exact requirements? Maybe they're just being good hosts, Lisa suggested, but her voice carried doubt. They gathered their gear and prepared to leave the Aurora. Jake had decided to bring minimal equipment, not wanting to appear threatening to their hosts. Each crew member carried only personal items and scientific instruments. The airlock cycled open to reveal a pristine corridor that stretched in both directions. Still no aliens in sight. Instead, a small floating device approached them, projecting a holographic arrow. "Follow the guide to your quarters," a mechanical voice announced. "Commander Vexhai will meet you in the main hall in 1 hour." As they walked through the ship, Jake became increasingly uneasy. The corridors were wide enough for dozens of beings to walk side by side, but they encountered no one. Doors sealed shut as they approached, and he caught glimpses of figures disappearing around corners just ahead of them. Their quarters were luxurious beyond anything on human ships. Each crew member received a private room with amenities that seemed designed specifically for human comfort. The beds were the right size, the lighting matched Earth's sun, and the temperature was perfect. "How do they know so much about what we need?" Alex asked. "But so little about who we are?" Katie was examining the walls with her scanner. "The metal here is incredibly dense. These aren't just rooms, they're isolation chambers. Look at this. Shielding." Lisa had discovered something else disturbing. "The air recycling system is running at maximum capacity. They're filtering everything we breathe out immediately." Sam was checking the corridor outside. "The path we took here has been sealed behind us. We can't go back the way we came." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Pack everything. Keep your gear ready. Something about this feels wrong." 1 hour. Later, they were escorted by more floating guides to the main hall. The massive chamber could have held thousands of beings, but only a few dozen aliens were present. Jake recognized several species from long-distance observations: the insect-like Cathani traders, the energy-based Nexar diplomats, and the mechanical quantum engineers. What struck him immediately was how they were all positioned. Every alien in the room was as far from the human delegation as possible while still remaining in the same space. They watched the humans with what could only be described as barely controlled fear. Commander Vexhai stood at the center of the room, his forearms held rigidly at his sides. "Welcome to the Celestial Dawn," he said, his voice carrying no warmth. "You are the first humans to be invited aboard a major galactic vessel." "We're honored by your invitation," Jake replied diplomatically. "Honored," Vexhai repeated, as if the word was foreign to him. "Yes. You should know that this meeting has been debated by the Galactic Council for many years. There are those who believe it should never have been approved." A ripple of movement went through the assembled aliens. Several of the Cathani actually backed further away from the humans. "Why is that?" Lisa asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming caution. Vexhai's black eyes fixed on her. "Because, Dr. Bennett, your species presents a unique challenge to galactic civilization. You are here so that we might better understand the nature of that challenge." Katie stepped forward. "What kind of challenge?" "We've been trying to establish peaceful contact for decades." "Peaceful," Vexhai said, and Jake thought he heard something like bitter laughter in the alien's voice. "Your species does not understand the meaning of that word. Not in the way the galaxy understands it." The tension in the room was growing thicker by the moment. Jake could see Alex's hand moving toward his weapon, and he caught the lieutenant's eye with a warning look. "Perhaps you could explain what you mean," Jake said carefully. Commander Vex-High looked around the room at the other aliens, as if seeking permission or support. Finally, he spoke again. "Captain Morrison, in your language, you have a saying about elephants in rooms. You humans are not elephants. You are something far more dangerous, and most of the galaxy would prefer that you never leave your small corner of space." The silence that followed was deafening. Jake felt his crew tense behind him, ready for whatever might come next. "Tomorrow," Vex-High continued, "your education will begin. You will learn why the galaxy fears humanity. You will learn why no species willingly invites humans aboard their vessels. And perhaps if we are fortunate, we will learn whether there is any hope of coexistence." The commander turned and walked away, followed by most of the other aliens. The humans were left standing, in the vast hall, suddenly very alone and very far from home. Jake Morrison woke to the sound of air filters working harder than they should. The mechanical humming was so loud, it vibrated through the walls of his quarters. He checked his watch and saw it was barely dawn by ship time, but sleep had been impossible anyway. The meeting with Commander Vex-High had left all of them on edge. Jake dressed quickly and stepped into the corridor, expecting to find his crew already awake. He was right. Lisa stood outside her door with a confused expression, holding her medical scanner. "Captain, you need to see this," she said, showing him the device. "The air composition in our section has changed overnight. They've added 3 different filtration compounds I don't recognize." Sam emerged from his room carrying an armload of equipment. "The life support systems have been modified. Heavily. Whatever they're filtering out, they're really serious about it." Katie joined them, looking frustrated. "I tried to access the ship's communication network this morning. Everything's blocked. We can't send messages to each other, let alone back to Earth." Alex appeared last, his military training evident in how quickly he had armed and armored himself. "The corridor we came through yesterday is sealed. There are new blast doors that weren't there before." Jake felt his stomach tighten. "Show me." They walked toward where they had entered their section the day before. Sure enough, massive metal barriers now blocked their path. The walls around the barriers were covered in warning symbols that pulsed red. "We're not guests," Alex said quietly. "We're prisoners." "Or specimens," Lisa added, studying her scanner readings. "The amount of monitoring equipment pointed at our section is incredible. They're measuring everything we do." A soft chime sounded, and one of the floating guide devices appeared. "Dr. Bennett, you are requested in Laboratory 7 for scheduled biological analysis. Please follow." Lisa looked at Jake, who nodded. "Go ahead, learn what you can. We'll stay together as much as possible, but we need information." The guide led Lisa through corridors that were completely different from the ones they had seen yesterday. These passages were narrower, more utilitarian, and lined with observation windows. Behind every window, Lisa could see alien technicians, watching her pass. They wore full protective suits despite being separated by thick barriers. Laboratory 7 was a sterile white room filled with equipment that seemed both familiar and completely alien. Commander Vex-High waited inside, along with 2 other Zephyrians wearing what looked like hazmat suits. "Dr. Bennett," Vex-High said, without preamble, "we will conduct standard biological assessments. You will submit to scans and provide samples as requested." "I'm happy to cooperate," Lisa replied, "but I'd like to understand what you're looking for." "Contamination," Vex-High said flatly. "We are measuring the extent of contamination you carry." Lisa felt a chill. "What kind of contamination?" "We've been through full medical screening. We're not carrying any diseases." "Not biological contamination, Dr. Bennett. Something far more dangerous." The scans began immediately. Lisa found herself subjected to tests, unlike anything in human medicine. Energy fields washed over her body while machines analyzed her from every angle. The readings on the alien devices made no sense to her, but she could see the growing alarm on the faces of the technicians. Meanwhile, Jake and the others were exploring their limited section of the ship. Sam had discovered that their quarters were surrounded by multiple layers of shielding, far more than would be needed for simple privacy. "It's like they're trying to contain radiation," Sam explained, running his hands along the walls. "But the shielding is designed to keep something in, not out." Katie was working on the communication systems, trying to find any way to contact the outside. "I keep getting fragments of signals," she said. "Automated warnings being broadcast throughout the ship. They're in a language I don't recognize, but the tone sounds like emergency alerts." Alex had been studying the layout of their prison. "The ventilation system is completely isolated from the rest of the ship. Our air never mixes with theirs, and look at this." He pointed to small devices mounted near the ceiling. "Those aren't just cameras. There's some kind of reality measurement equipment." "Reality measurement?" Jake asked. "I've seen similar devices in theoretical physics labs on Earth. They measure quantum fluctuations and dimensional stability." "Why would they need those in a living area?" Back in the laboratory, Lisa was growing more concerned by the minute. The alien technicians were backing away from their instruments as if the readings were dangerous to observe. "What are you finding?" she asked Commander Vexhai. "Confirmation of our worst fears," he replied. "Dr. Bennett, your species carries something we call the void touch. It is not a disease or a parasite. It is something fundamental to your existence that makes reality unstable around you." Lisa stared at him. "That's impossible. Reality doesn't work that way." "For most species, you are correct. Reality is fixed, absolute, unchanging, but humans exist partially outside normal space-time. Your consciousness operates on quantum principles that should not be possible in biological beings." One of the technicians spoke rapidly in the Zephyrian language. Vexhai listened, then turned back to Lisa with what might have been concern. "The contamination levels are higher than our models predicted. Dr. Bennett, how long has your species been spacefaring?" "About 200 years for basic spaceflight, 60 years for interstellar travel. In 60 years, you have advanced from primitive chemical rockets to faster-than-light travel. Most species require tens of thousands of years for such development. Do you understand why this terrifies us?" Lisa was beginning to, but she didn't want to believe it. "You think we're developing too fast. We think your species operates by rules that could destroy the ordered universe. Every ship that has encountered humans reports the same phenomena. Equipment failures that should be impossible, navigation errors that defy physics, crew members who begin to think in ways that threaten their sanity." The laboratory door opened, and more aliens entered. Lisa recognized several species from the main hall, but now they were all wearing full environmental suits. "The other humans, in your crew," Vexhai continued. "They are causing reality distortions throughout this section of the ship. Our instruments detect quantum fluctuations that should not exist. The fabric of space-time becomes soft around your species." "What does that mean?" Lisa asked, though she was starting to fear the answer. "It means that the impossible becomes possible in your presence. That the laws of physics become suggestions rather than absolutes. That reality itself bends to accommodate your species' unconscious expectations." Lisa thought about all the times human crews had survived impossible situations, made repairs that shouldn't have worked, found solutions that violated known science. She thought about humanity's rapid technological advancement and their ability to adapt to any environment. "You're saying we change reality just by existing in it." "Not change, Dr. Bennett. Contaminate. You make it unstable, unpredictable, dangerous. A universe where anything can happen is a universe where nothing can be trusted." The implications hit her like a physical blow. "That's why no one welcomes humans aboard their ships. We're not just foreign to you. We're a threat to the basic structure of existence." "Now you begin to understand," Vexhai said. Your species has been quarantined not out of prejudice, but out of necessity. If humans spread throughout the galaxy, your reality contamination could unravel the fundamental laws that hold the universe together. Lisa felt sick. What happens to us now? That remains to be decided by the Galactic Council. But first, we must complete our study. We must understand the full extent of human contamination and whether it can be contained or neutralized. And if it can't be? Commander HFY was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke, and his voice carried a weight of terrible responsibility. Then the Galactic Council will be forced to take permanent measures to protect the universe from humanity. Lisa understood the euphemism. Extinction. Not because humans were evil or aggressive, but because their very existence threatened the stability of reality itself. She was escorted back to her quarters in stunned silence, her mind reeling with the implications of what she had learned. As she rejoined her crewmates, she saw that the situation had grown worse in her absence. The walls of their section were now covered with monitoring equipment. The air filtration was running so hard it created a constant roar, and through the observation windows she could see dozens of alien scientists studying them like the most dangerous specimens in the galaxy. Jake took one look at her face and knew their situation was far worse than any of them had imagined. They were not ambassadors or guests. They were a contamination that the galaxy was desperately trying to understand before deciding how to eliminate it. The nightmare began on their third day aboard the Celestial Dawn. Jake Morrison had just finished his morning routine when Sam Davis burst into his quarters, his face pale with terror. "Captain, you need to see this right now," Sam gasped, holding his engineering scanner with shaking hands. "The corridor outside my room, it's not there anymore." Jake followed Sam into the hallway and stopped dead. Where Sam's door should have opened onto the main corridor, there was now a wall of stars. Not a window showing space outside the ship, but actual open space with no barrier between them and the void. "That's impossible," Jake whispered, but he could feel the cold vacuum pulling at his skin. Katie Walsh came running from the other direction, her translation devices beeping frantically. "Captain, the ship's AI is speaking in languages that don't exist. Listen to this." She played back a recording of mechanical voices speaking in sounds that hurt to hear, describing concepts that had no meaning. Lisa Bennett emerged from her quarters looking exhausted. "The medical scanner in my room started showing impossible readings. According to it, I'm simultaneously alive, dead, and something else that doesn't have a word." Alex Carter appeared from around a corner that Jake was certain hadn't been there the day before. "The layout of our section keeps changing. I've been mapping it for security purposes, but the corridors are different every time I check." Jake felt reality shifting around them like a living thing. The walls seemed to breathe, and the floor felt unsteady beneath his feet. "Everyone stay together. We need to figure out what's happening." Commander HFY's voice suddenly filled the air around them, though no speakers were visible. "Humans, report to Laboratory 7 immediately. Do not deviate from the path the guides show you. Do not look directly at any anomalies you encounter." The floating guides appeared, but they moved erratically, sometimes passing through solid walls or hovering upside down. Following them became a nightmare journey through corridors that defied physics. Doors opened onto rooms that were larger inside than the ship itself. Gravity changed direction randomly, forcing them to walk on ceilings or walls. Lisa watched her medical scanner throughout the journey. "The quantum readings are off the charts. Space-time is becoming unstable everywhere we go." When they finally reached Laboratory 7, they found it transformed. The sterile white room was now a maze of impossible geometry, with surfaces that curved in directions that shouldn't exist. Commander HFY waited at the center, surrounded by protective barriers that shimmered with energy. "The contamination is accelerating," HFY announced without greeting them. "Your presence aboard this ship has triggered reality decay at..." a rate far beyond our projections. What do you mean, reality decay? Jake demanded. Observe. Vexhide gestured to a series of screens showing different areas of the ship. In each image, Jake could see impossible things happening. Crew members walking through solid walls, equipment floating in midair without anti-grav systems, rooms that existed in multiple locations simultaneously. Your species' unconscious effect on quantum reality is spreading throughout the celestial dawn. Areas that have never been exposed to humans are beginning to experience anomalies. The ship's AI has started dreaming, which should be impossible. For a mechanical intelligence. Sam stared at the screens in horrified fascination. We're making the ship's computer imagine things that aren't real, and then those things become real. Precisely, Engineer Davis. Human consciousness operates by manipulating probability fields. What you call creativity and imagination are actually quantum-level reality adjustments. Most species think in fixed patterns that support stable reality. Humans think in ways that make anything possible. Katie stepped forward, her translation devices still buzzing with impossible languages. Is that why we advanced so quickly as a species? Because we unconsciously alter reality to make our inventions work? Every human technological breakthrough has involved discoveries that should have been impossible with your level of scientific understanding. Your engineers build devices that work through principles they don't fully comprehend. Your scientists make leaps of logic that defy rational thought processes. Lisa was studying her scanner readings. The effect is getting stronger. Whatever we're doing to reality, it's accelerating. Vexahi's forearms moved in what might have been agitation. Dr. Bennett, your medical background allows you to understand biology. Consider this. Most species evolve consciousness as a tool for survival within fixed natural laws. Humans evolved consciousness as a tool for changing those laws. You're saying we're evolutionary mistakes, Alex said, his hand moving toward his weapon out of pure instinct. Not mistakes, Lieutenant Carter. Weapons. Your species is a weapon against reality itself, created by forces that exist outside normal space-time. The laboratory shuddered around them, and Jake felt the floor become liquid beneath his feet before solidifying again. Through the observation windows, he could see alien crew members fleeing in panic as their equipment began behaving in impossible ways. What forces? Jake asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. We call it the Void Realm, a dimension that exists beyond the ordered universe, where chaos and possibility reign supreme. Most species have no connection to it, but humans serve as unconscious bridges between reality and the void. Sam was frantically checking his instruments. The ship's structural integrity is failing, not because of damage, but because the metal is forgetting how to be metal. Engineer Davis speaks truly. Matter itself becomes unstable in extended human presence. The atomic bonds that hold substances together begin to operate by human expectations rather than physical laws. Katie's devices suddenly went silent. The translation systems just died, but I can still understand you perfectly. How is that possible? Because reality is adjusting to accommodate your needs, Communications Officer Walsh. The barriers between minds are dissolving in the presence of human consciousness. Soon, thought itself will become visible and audible, as if summoned by his words. Jake began to see strange shadows moving at the edges of his vision. The shadows had voices, whispering thoughts that weren't his own. He could hear the terror of the alien crew members throughout the ship, feel their desperate attempts to maintain rational thought in a universe that was losing its grip on logic. This is what happens to every ship that hosts humans for extended periods, Vexhide continued. Reality becomes fluid. The impossible becomes inevitable. Crews are driven mad by experiencing a universe where their most basic assumptions about existence prove false. Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. Captain, look at your hands. Jake looked down and saw his hands flickering between solid flesh and something else entirely. For brief moments, he could see through them to glimpse other dimensions where different versions of himself existed. The boundary between self and universe is dissolving, Vexhai observed with scientific detachment. Soon you will begin to experience existence as your species truly does, as conscious agents of reality manipulation rather than passive observers of fixed natural laws. The laboratory walls began to shift and flow like water. Equipment phases in and out of existence, sometimes replaced by devices that served the same function, but operated on completely different principles. "How long do we have?" Jake asked, fighting to maintain his sense of self as reality warped around them. "Before total reality collapse?" "Perhaps 6 hours. The contamination has reached critical mass. The celestial dawn will soon exist in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously real and unreal until observation forces it to choose one state or the other." Alex was staring at his weapon, which had transformed into something that fired beams of crystallized thought. "What happens to the crew when reality collapses?" "They will be forced to experience existence as humans do, in a universe where consciousness shapes reality rather than the reverse. For most alien minds, this transition proves fatal. We are not equipped to survive in a reality that responds to imagination." Sam's engineering equipment was now displaying readings in colors that had no names, measuring forces that existed only because he expected them to. "There has to be a way to reverse this, some way to stabilize reality." "Only one method has ever been theorized," Vexhai replied. "The humans must willingly suppress their reality-altering abilities. You must choose to think like other species, in fixed patterns that support stable existence." Katie laughed, but the sound came out as visible music floating through the air. "You're asking us to stop being human, to lobotomize ourselves. The alternative is the complete dissolution of ordered space-time. First this ship, then any vessel or station that encounters the wreckage, then spreading outward until the entire galaxy exists in a state of quantum chaos." Jake felt the weight of impossible responsibility settling on his shoulders. Around them, the celestial dawn continued its transformation from a starship into something that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "There's a third option," Jake said slowly. "We don't suppress our abilities. We learn to control them." Vexhai's black eyes focused on him with something that might have been hope. "Captain Morrison, no human has ever demonstrated conscious control over reality manipulation. Your species' power operates entirely through unconscious processes. Then maybe it's time we learn to be conscious of it." Jake Morrison closed his eyes and tried to focus on the feeling of solid ground beneath his feet. When he opened them again, the laboratory floor had stopped shifting like liquid and seemed more stable. The realization hit him like lightning. "I just controlled it," he whispered. "I imagined the floor being solid and it became solid." Commander Vexhai backed away from his protective barriers, his forearms trembling. "Impossible. Humans cannot consciously manipulate reality. The contamination operates only through unconscious processes." "Then explain this," Sam Davis said, staring at his scanner. The device had been showing impossible readings moments before, but now displayed normal engineering data. "I concentrated on making it work properly, and it did." Lisa Bennett was examining her medical equipment with growing excitement. "The quantum fluctuations are stabilizing where we focus our attention. We're not just contaminating reality, we're reshaping it." Katie Walsh held up her translation devices, which were now functioning perfectly, despite having died minutes earlier. "I wanted to understand you without these machines, and suddenly I could. When I wanted the machines to work again, they came back online." Vexahai's black eyes darted between the humans with what could only be described as terror. "You are proving our worst fears correct. Conscious reality manipulation means humans are not random contamination. You are deliberate agents of chaos." "No," Jake said firmly, and his voice seemed to carry weight that made the air itself more solid. "We're agents of change. There's a difference." The ship around them continued to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Through the laboratory walls, they could see corridors that led to different dimensions, crew quarters that existed in the past and future at the same time, and engine rooms where the laws of physics had been replaced by pure imagination. Alex Carter was staring at his hands, which flickered between flesh and something made of crystallized thought. "Commander Vex-High, what happens to your crew if we can't stabilize this ship?" "They die," Vex-High replied bluntly. "Not physical death, but the death of rational existence. Their minds will be forced to operate in a reality where anything can happen, where cause and effect become matters of opinion rather than law." Lisa felt a surge of responsibility that seemed to make the medical scanners around her respond with more accurate readings. "We can't let that happen. These beings invited us here in good faith, even though they were terrified of us." "Good faith," Sam muttered, trying to force his engineering equipment to give him useful data about the ship's condition. "They're studying us like a plague they need to cure." Katie was listening to broadcasts from throughout the ship, her translation devices now picking up the panicked communications of dozens of alien species. "The entire crew is terrified. They're reporting reality distortions in sections that have never had human contact." Jake made a decision that felt like stepping off a cliff into unknown space. "We're going to fix this, all of it. But first we need to understand what we're really dealing with." He turned to Vex-High, who was still cowering behind his protective barriers. "You said humans are connected to something called the Void Realm. What exactly is that?" "A dimension of pure possibility that exists outside ordered space-time," Vex-High replied reluctantly. "Most species evolved to be isolated from it, protected by the barriers of fixed reality. Humans somehow evolved as bridges between the ordered universe and the void." "Why?" Lisa asked. "What evolutionary pressure would create something like that?" "We believe your species was shaped by contact with beings from the Void Realm itself. Ancient influences that needed agents in ordered reality to further their purposes." Sam looked up from his attempts to stabilize the ship's systems. "Are you saying we're tools of some kind of cosmic entities?" "Tools, weapons, or perhaps seeds," Vex-High said. "The purpose remains unclear, but the effect is obvious. Wherever humans go, reality becomes malleable." Jake felt something shift in his understanding, like a door opening in his mind. "What if you're wrong about the purpose? What if we're not weapons against reality, but gardeners of possibility?" "Explain," Vex-High demanded. "Every species you've described thinks in fixed patterns. You've created a stable galactic civilization, but you've also created stagnation. How long has your technology remained unchanged? How long since any species made a breakthrough discovery?" Katie was translating communications from across the ship, and her expression grew thoughtful. "The aliens are describing our effects as contamination and chaos, but listen to what's actually happening. Broken equipment is fixing itself. Navigation systems that were failing are finding new solutions. The ship's AI is developing creative problem-solving abilities." "Creativity is chaos," Vex-High insisted. "Unpredictability is death." "Creativity is growth," Lisa countered. "Without it, you get perfect stability that's also perfect stagnation." Alex was examining his transformed weapon, which now seemed to respond to his intentions rather than simple triggers. "Maybe the reason we advanced so fast as a species is that we need change to survive. Our reality manipulation isn't contamination, it's adaptation." Jake felt pieces clicking together in his mind, and with each connection, the laboratory became more stable around them. "Commander Vex-High, what happens to a galaxy that never changes? What happens to civilizations that achieve perfect stability?" "They endure. They survive. They maintain order." "They die," Sam said quietly, his engineering expertise giving him insight the others lacked. Not physically, but evolutionarily. Perfect systems don't adapt to new challenges. When something comes along that your fixed reality can't handle, you have no way to change to meet it. Katie had been listening to deeper ship communications, and her face went pale. Captain, there are reports coming in from across the galaxy. Something is coming. Some kind of threat from outside known space that none of the established species know how to handle. Vex High's protective barriers flickered and failed as his concentration broke. The Void Eaters. We had hoped they were still millennia away. What are Void Eaters? Jake asked, though he suspected he didn't want to know. Entities from outside reality that consume ordered space-time itself. They turn everything they touch into nothingness. No weapon we possess can harm them, because they exist outside the laws of physics that define our weapons. Lisa felt a chill of understanding. But humans exist partially outside those same laws. We could potentially fight something that normal physics can't touch. The Galactic Council believes this is why humans evolved, Vex High admitted. Why the Void Realm influenced your development. You may be the galaxy's only defense against complete annihilation. Alex checked his weapon, which had now transformed into something that seemed to fire bullets made of crystallized possibility. So the choice isn't between order and chaos, it's between stagnation and survival. Sam was getting clearer readings from his equipment as his understanding of their situation improved. The ship's condition is stabilizing as we focus on controlling our abilities rather than suppressing them. We're not contaminating reality, we're expanding it. Jake felt the weight of cosmic responsibility, but also a growing sense of purpose. Commander Vex High, what would happen if instead of quarantining humans, the galaxy learned to work with us? If stable species provided order while humans provided adaptability? Theoretical models suggest such cooperation could create a hybrid civilization capable of both stability and growth, Vex High said reluctantly. But the risks of not cooperating are greater, Katie interrupted, still monitoring galactic communications. The Void Eaters are accelerating their approach. The Outer Rim colonies are reporting reality collapse, but not the kind we cause. This is true annihilation. Lisa was scanning the area around them, noting how their conscious control was creating pockets of stable reality within the chaos. We can do this. We can learn to use our abilities constructively instead of destructively. But first we need to save this ship and everyone on it, Jake said. We need to prove that humans can be partners rather than parasites. Vex High looked around the laboratory, which had become a strange hybrid of alien technology and human imagination. Equipment that shouldn't work together was functioning in harmony, creating possibilities that neither species could achieve alone. The crew is calming down, he observed. The panic is subsiding as reality stabilizes around your conscious efforts. Alex nodded toward the observation windows, where alien technicians were cautiously returning to their posts. They're seeing that we can control this, that we're not just chaos engines. Sam's equipment was now showing readings that made sense, but also showed possibilities beyond normal engineering. Captain, I think I can stabilize the entire ship if the others help me focus our abilities. Do it, Jake ordered. Show them what humans can really do when we work together. As the 5 humans joined their conscious efforts, the Celestial Dawn began to transform from a ship caught between realities into something entirely new. A vessel that existed in stable reality but could adapt and change as needed. They were no longer contamination spreading through the galaxy. They were evolution in action, and the universe was about to discover whether it was ready to grow. The transformation of the Celestial Dawn took 6 hours of concentrated effort from the human crew. Jake Morrison felt sweat beading on his forehead as he focused on imagining the ship's hull as solid and stable while maintaining its ability to adapt to threats. Around him, his crew worked with an intensity he had never seen before. Sam Davis had his hands pressed against the ship's main engineering console, his mind linked to systems that now responded to conscious thought as much as technical commands. "The engines are stabilizing," he reported, "but they're also evolving. The fusion reactors are operating on principles that shouldn't be possible, but they're more efficient than before." Lisa Bennett monitored the life support systems throughout the ship, her medical training allowing her to understand the biological needs of dozens of alien species. Atmosphere composition is normal in all sections. The reality distortions are fading, but leaving behind improvements. The air recycling system is now self-repairing. Katie Walsh stood at the communication center. Her consciousness expanded to translate between species that had never been able to communicate directly before. "I'm getting reports from all decks. The crew is no longer panicking. They're amazed by what they're seeing." Alex Carter maintained security protocols, while his transformed weapon helped him monitor the ship's defensive systems. "The shields are stronger than they were before, but they're also more flexible. They can adapt to different types of attacks automatically." Commander Vex High watched from the center of the laboratory, his 4 arms no longer trembling. The protective barriers around him had dissolved as the humans proved they could control their reality-altering effects. His black eyes showed something Jake had never expected to see from an alien. Wonder. "Impossible," Vexahai murmured. "You have stabilized quantum chaos into controlled evolution. The ship is simultaneously more stable and more adaptable than it was before human contact." "Not impossible," Jake replied, feeling the ship respond to his words by becoming even more solid beneath their feet. "Just different from what you expected." Through the laboratory walls, they could see alien crew members returning to their duties. But something had changed in them as well. The rigid patterns of thought that had defined their species for millennia were showing cracks, allowing new possibilities to emerge. A Cathani engineer was staring at a piece of equipment that had broken and repaired itself in ways that defied known science. The insect-like being's compound eyes showed confusion, but also curiosity about how the impossible repair had happened. A Nexar diplomat was experimenting with communication methods that bypassed their species' traditional energy-based language, finding that direct thought transmission was not only possible, but more efficient than their old methods. Several quantum mechanical beings had discovered that their rigid programming could incorporate creative problem-solving routines without losing their essential stability. "The contamination is spreading," Vexhai observed, but his tone had changed from fear to fascination. "But it is not destroying their essential nature. It is expanding their possibilities." Katie looked up from her communication console. "Commander, I'm receiving a priority message from the Galactic Council. They're requesting immediate status reports on the human experiment." Vexhai moved to his own communication station, which now responded to his thoughts as well as his physical commands. The enhancement allowed him to process information faster than ever before. "Council Command, this is Commander Vexhai aboard the Celestial Dawn." The response came immediately, projected as a holographic image of a being Jake didn't recognize. The creature appeared to be made of crystallized light and spoke in harmonics that hurt to hear. "Commander Vexhai, our sensors detect massive quantum disturbances centered on your location. Are the humans contained?" "High Counselor, the situation has evolved beyond our original parameters. The humans have demonstrated conscious control over reality manipulation. The contamination has been stabilized into controlled evolution." "Impossible. Human reality distortion cannot be controlled. Prepare for immediate extraction of your crew and destruction of your vessel to prevent spread of contamination." Jake felt anger surge through him, and the ship's hull seemed to strengthen in response to his emotion. "High Counselor, may I speak?" The crystalline being's attention focused on Jake with what felt like the weight of stellar gravity. "You are Captain Morrison of the human expedition. You will explain how you have achieved conscious reality control. We stopped fighting what we are and started working with it, Jake replied simply. Your species have spent millions of years trying to maintain perfect stability, but perfect stability is death. Growth requires change, and change requires the possibility of failure. Change leads to chaos. Chaos leads to destruction. Lisa stepped forward, her medical training giving her insight into the alien mindset. High Counselor, with respect, your approach to stability has created evolutionary dead ends. Your species have become so focused on maintaining order that you've lost the ability to adapt to new challenges. We have survived for millions of years through order and stability. And now you face extinction from the Void Eaters because your ordered reality cannot comprehend how to fight them, Alex added, his weapon system somehow interfacing with the ship's sensors to show readings from the galaxy's outer rim. The displays showed devastation beyond comprehension. Entire star systems had been reduced to nothingness, not destroyed but completely erased from existence. The void was spreading inward at an accelerating pace. Sam accessed the ship's navigation computers and projected trajectory calculations. At current rate of advance, the Void Eaters will reach the galactic core in less than 50 years. Your stable civilizations cannot evolve fast enough to develop defenses. But humans can, Katie added, her translation abilities now allowing her to communicate with the Council in ways that bypassed their normal linguistic limitations. We can adapt and change faster than the threat can advance. The High Counselors. Crystalline form flickered with what might have been uncertainty. Even if we accepted human assistance, the contamination effect would spread beyond control. Not contamination, Vex High interjected, surprising everyone. Evolution, High Counselor. I have observed the human effect firsthand. They do not destroy order, they expand it. They make the impossible possible while maintaining essential stability. Jake felt the moment balanced on a knife's edge. The decision made here would determine not just humanity's fate, but the survival of an entire galaxy. High Counselor, we propose a partnership, Jake said, putting all his concentration into making his words carry the weight of absolute truth. Stable species provide the foundation of order. Humans provide the ability to grow and adapt. Together, we can create a civilization that survives and thrives. The risks are less than the risk of extinction, Lisa interrupted. Your people are already dying, not physically but evolutionarily. Perfect stability is just another form of death. The High Counselor was silent for long moments. Around them, the celestial dawn hummed with new possibilities, a ship that was both utterly stable and infinitely adaptable. Finally, the crystalline being spoke. Commander Vex High, you will escort the human delegation to the council chambers. We will convene an emergency session to consider this proposal. Understood, High Counselor. As the communication ended, Vex High turned to the humans with something that might have been respect. You have achieved something unprecedented. You have made the impossible seem not only possible but necessary. Jake looked around at his crew, seeing the changes in them as well. They were still human, but they were also something more. Conscious agents of positive change rather than unconscious sources of chaos. Commander Vex High, there's something you need to understand about humans, Jake said. We're not trying to replace your civilization with chaos. We're trying to help it grow into something that can survive what's coming. And what is coming? The future, Katie replied, her enhanced communication abilities showing her glimpses of possibilities that stretched beyond the current crisis. A universe where order and change work together instead of fighting each other. As the Celestial Dawn prepared to take them to the Galactic Council, Jake realized that their mission had succeeded beyond their wildest expectations. They had not just made contact with alien civilization. They had shown the galaxy how to evolve. The ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, but it was no longer just a Zephyrian vessel. It had become something new, a hybrid of alien stability and human adaptability, carrying within it the seeds of a transformed galactic civilization. Behind them, reality remained stable. Ahead of them, infinite possibilities awaited. The terrifying truth was no longer that aliens feared humans aboard their ships. The wonderful truth was that they no longer had to.